Hi, good day everyone. My name is Alex, I'm from Leader Computers, and with this video I just want to do a guide on how to set up the Ubiquiti Access Control products. So this video is a little bit more detailed. We do also have a shortened version available. It is in the video description if you want to go through to that for just the basic setup. There's two components to this. We also have the basic components required as well as the setup. So if you just want to skip ahead to the setup, you're more than welcome to do that. It is time-stamped in this video as well. So we'll start by taking a look at the different components and then move over to setup. So in terms of the components required, the basic things that you would typically need would look something along the lines of this. This obviously would vary depending on what you're trying to do. So with Ubiquiti's access control products, you can control doors, gates, even elevators, and the types of doors and gates would have a large impact on the types of hubs, readers, etc. that you're using. At its most basic form, it would be something like this, where you have a hub that is responsible for connecting the doors, the locks, the strikes, etc., the readers, which are responsible for doing access, and then behind all of this you will need switching and a unified cloud gateway. Important to make sure that the gateway that you're using does support Ubiquiti's Access application. So there's a broad range of those, again depending on scale and size. As a most basic setup, what you'll typically have is your switches powering and connecting your hubs, typically via PoE or PoE++ in this instance. And then from this hub, it is also capable of passing power out to the readers and even cameras as well, and providing connectivity to cameras. And it does have powered contacts for mag locks, strike locks, etc. as well. I'm going to take a more detailed look at this in a second. But as the basic components, this is typically what you're looking at. You don't have to do two specific readers here. You can do one reader. There's a lot of flexibility around this, but just as the basic equipment required. The Unified Cloud Gateway is the brains of this operation, so you do need to have something that is responsible for doing protect or access in this instance as well. We're going to move over to just techspecs.ui.com. I very quickly want to run through the door access options that they have here. So this isn't a product video, I just want to explain why you're buying these components. Firstly, I just want to mention that Access is also part of the ENVR stack as well, or sorry, NVR stack as well. So if you have any one of these NVRs, it is capable of doing access control. You don't have to buy a complete dedicated cloud gateway, although it's typically recommended to have that somewhere in the chain as well. So with this, we get a bunch of different kits. We have individual items as well, and you'll see that this varies depending on use case. So we have stuff for gates, we have stuff for elevators, and then we have the more general starter kits. So I'll start by taking a look at the G3 Starter Kit Pro. So this is a relatively new addition, and what's included with this is the reader, the hub, a couple of fobs, and then another type of reader as well. The readers with cameras that you're seeing on the left hand side here would typically be used for external doors. So this would be stuff like the outside of your business, where you want people to walk up to it, press the button, and ring through to reception, for example. The camera can be used for either video recording or even facial recognition, depending on which readers you're using. This G3 reader specifically does support facial recognition as well. The G2 readers do the same thing. The G2 Reader Pro, let me just make sure of that. And along with this, we have our hub. You'll see the inputs and outputs are nice and easily labeled. They do tell you what they're for, so motion, door position sensing, emergency override, etc. all listed there. They're trying to keep this as simple as possible, so they give you all the components that you require for a per door setup. Important here to understand that this is typically on a ratio of one of these hubs and maybe two of these readers per door. This hub is not all encompassing, so you can't just have 50 readers connecting back to one hub. And in real world, you wouldn't expect to see it that way anyway. You wouldn't have like 5 different doors being opened at the same time. So it kind of makes sense to structure it this way. So along with this, they do give you a the regular G3 reader, which is NFC based as well. It also does near field technology, so you can wave your hand in front of it and it will function as a push to exit button essentially. I do want to mention again here that the inputs and outputs here are purely analog inputs and outputs. They don't have an IP interface. You can use pretty much any brand of lock or strike or something along those lines to get this done. It doesn't really matter. So the types of inputs and outputs on these hubs would vary. If you're buying a gate version, that would have different inputs and outputs as well. Ubiquiti does have a detailed installation guide available for you on techspecs.ui.com, so if you do get stuck, please do check that out as well. These can be a bit intricate in terms of setup. I do want to also at this stage just mention that I am not a licensed security installer for Australia, and therefore I am not providing any type of legal advice on this. This is just showing you the basic steps of how Ubiquiti wants you to set these devices up. You'll obviously have to follow your regulatory requirements when you're installing the stuff. Access control is extremely important because people's lives depend on it, so please do stick to the rules with that. Okay, so now that we've seen the different types of equipment, I'm not going to go through all the million different types of setup topologies that is possible. We can get started with the practical setup portion. So to do this, we're going to hop on over to a cloud key that I've already set up. I've just used a cloud key because it's nice and convenient. It has a built-in hard drive. If you're buying a UDM Pro or NVR or something like that, then you'll typically have to install drives on that as well. So if you're unfamiliar with this, the way to get started is you can use the Ubiquiti application, either connecting directly to the IP address of the controller, or the gateway as they call it, or you can use your mobile phone with a lot of devices to just set it up from there. Once that setup is done, you'll get to the network portion, and in this network portion you have network controls. So that would be for your networks, your Wi-Fi, VLANs, etc. We're not going to go through the full VLAN setup in this instance. We are going to do a detailed video on how to set up both the surveillance side and the access control side of things, like from the network side as well. So we'll also, when that's done, we will link it back to this video. Okay, so what we're going to do is, when we're logged into our device, we're going to go to Settings, Control Panel, and we'll see Access. I'm going to go ahead and start installing Access here. A good way to tell if the application is installed or not is you'll see the icon at the top. We already have Protect installed. It shows that it is installed and up to date. And if I want to install any of the other application sensors, so for example Talk or Connect or Inner Space for example, I can do that from here as well. When you're doing this install, you can also select your release channel. So do you want to use early access software for lab environments, for example, or do you want to use the official software or the official firmware to get this production environment going? Obviously, in production, I would recommend official because you're always bound to run into problems with early access firmware, etc. Ubiquiti's early access is pretty good, but just as a general recommendation. So we'll see this installation finish off in a second. It goes pretty quickly. It takes about 15 seconds or so to run through for access. It will also do a couple of checks about the latest version of the firmware, etc. while it's going through this. So you'll see the access application is now starting, and I have an option to set up. I can later on change my release channel as well. So we'll go to setup, and we're going to complete the initial setup of our access environment. I'm going to start by doing agree to the terms and service here, and instantly it will detect the devices on our network. So this is a very easy one because it's a flat network. My devices are all local, so they're all automatically discovered. It can be a little bit more complicated if you're introducing a bunch of VLANs and you need to segment out your traffic more. But this one, super simple. So it found these devices automatically. It will prompt me to add them automatically. As the first step here, you'll see it picks up my hub, and I've got 2 readers picked up as well. This is the G3 version, so it has the touch pass integration as well. I would recommend while you're doing the setup, when you're doing the physical install, make a note of which MAC addresses belong to which doors. So if you're flipping the hub over and the reader over, you'll see the MAC address of the device there. And when I want to associate them here, it makes it nice and easy for me to remember which hub is associated to which door. So let's say I had 30 doors, big business, and this is the reception main door. It would be quite difficult for me if I had hundreds of doors showing up here to label this. So I'll just go reception hub, for example. It doesn't have to be that way. And as the readers here, so I have a G3 Reader Pro and a regular G3 reader. The G3 Reader Pro, like I said before, that would be something that's typically on the outside of the building, and the regular reader would be on the inside for either NFC exit or for just waving your hand in front of it. Of course, you can do stuff like a normal push button as well. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. So that's all done. This process automatically associates the different devices to my controller, my gateway. It's important that it's done that way so that nobody else can adopt your devices. It now prompts me to register my NFC cards. You can do this if you want to. I don't have my NFC cards set up at the moment, so I'm going to do this in a little while. And it will scan the reader to try and associate NFC cards. It basically adds it into like a stockpile of cards. I'm just going to skip this for the moment. Okay, and that's it. It will automatically prompt you to get started with Apple, or with Touch Bar, sorry. It's also available on Google Wallet as well, so not just Apple. If you want to, you can click on the Get Started button here. For our setup, we're going to ignore this for the moment. You'll see my one device came up very quickly. So this is just obviously in our office. I'm doing this in a lab environment. And as the next step, I would typically go to my devices to just make sure that they are associated and connected correctly. So I'll see my hub, my readers, etc., and I'll see the status of them showing all online. If it's the first time you're doing a setup, then it might warn you that it's doing an update, or there's a couple of things along with that as well. Okay, so nice and easy. The first step for me typically would be to go to my settings, and I will start working through this. So this doesn't have to follow exactly this rhyme or reason. You can do it in a format that suits you, but just to go through the different steps and of how I would normally do it. The first thing for me is if this is a fresh install and I'm doing the access control portion first, the first step would be to go to my storage. So I'm going to go to Control Panel, Storage, and I want to format my drives here so that they are obviously redundant, so I can set up RAID and stuff like that, and I want to make sure that they're clean so I can start using this. I can already hear you asking, why would we need storage if we're doing access control? This is primarily just for the video footage. So if your reader has like a camera on it, then obviously we need to record that footage back to somewhere, and we need a drive for that. Some of your controllers or gateways do have built-in drives as well, or have built-in flash memory as well, with a basic amount of storage there. You can obviously expand this out if you want to. So not much else that we need to do in the segment right now. I do recommend people work through the push notifications as well. I normally do this as a first step to make sure that I get notified of stuff like a drive failure. By default, it's set to notify you on the app, but I would like to get an email about that as well. So drive failure, drive issues, stuff like incompatible drives or something along those lines. And depending on your environment, I would also do stuff like when an admin is added or removed, or when a backup is created or restored. Stuff like that is pretty handy. So this is specifically related to access. If I were to move over to network or protect, you'll see the push notifications related to that specifically as well. Okay, so nice and easy to get started with this. The next step for me would typically to kind of design my environment to my requirements. And what I mean by that is I'm going to go to the general section. I'm going to firstly obviously select my language. That should have prompted you during the initial setup anyway. You can set your time format, and then you can do stuff like choose where your video recordings are stored. If you want to make it part of Protect as the description there says it enables continuous recording for the reader cameras in the Protect application, but it is susceptible or subject to the Protect camera capacity per console. That means if your NVR can only do 25 cameras, this reader takes a portion of that. So if it has a camera, it does take one of those slots, depending on if you have capacity or not. Also, this is continuous recording, so just be aware that it's going to chew a bit more storage. So this is, it serves a couple of purposes. I would generally recommend turning this on. If you make it part of Protect, it does allow you to create alerts and unlock doors, etc. from the Protect side as well. So do recommend playing around with that. You can, if you're planning to use pin codes, you can adjust your pin code types. So fixed length, variable length, up to you. You can also choose whether or not you want the doorbell button, so on the actual reader itself, to notify admins. So by default, this is off, and I would, depending on your environment, typically leave this off and rather go specify which users are responsible for receiving calls when someone presses the button. And you can also say what the maximum call duration is. You obviously don't want someone to walk past the building, press the button, and it rings and it calls continuously for hours and hours and hours. So we want to set a limit on that. You can also set your data retention, so how long should the video footage be stored and your logs be stored. If you leave it on auto, it'll try to keep it for as long as there is storage. Okay, easy done. Once my general setup is completed, the next thing I would typically go do is my policies and schedules. With my schedules up first, and then I will go create users and then policies. So let's quickly run through it. So schedules is obviously a time schedule, as the name implies. It comes with a default schedule, which is basically all day, every day access. If I were to apply this, it would mean anyone that has the correct credential can, during any time of day, walk up to the reader and unlock the door. For businesses, you obviously might not want this. If you're closed over the weekend, you don't want your staff to come in and do stuff while you're actually closed. You can also set up holiday periods, etc., but we're going to do that in a moment. So I don't want to touch the default one. What I'm instead going to do is create a new one, and I'll just do leader, office, let's go time zone. It's not really a time zone, but we'll just call it that. And with this, I can go ahead and adjust the length of this time period. I would say don't be too overly strict here with your times. Remember that employees often arrive late or early, so be a little bit more lenient here. And you can say, okay, cool, people can come and go between those times, and I will go save. By default, it populates 8 to 5, but you can go ahead and override this to whatever you want it to. Also, if you have days which are, some days they should be shorter, so let's, for example, we only allow that during specific times of the week, then you can do that. Or if you have staff coming in over the Saturdays and Sundays and stuff like that, absolutely can. For holidays, so as the name implies, most countries would have public holidays, obviously. I'll go do one here and just go Christmas Day, and or we can just say Christmas break. That might be a more relevant one here. Break. So if this is our planned holidays for the Christmas period, I can go ahead and go back to, or go forward to December. Go, okay, from the 25th of December to the 31st, nice and easy. I want to have that period be closed or not accessible. You can also choose to repeat this yearly. So if you know that a holiday is always going to occur on the same day, easy to get that added. Okay, go create that. I can create tons of these holidays as I see fit. And then during this holiday period as well, you can, for example, set time periods associated along with that. So super easy to get this done. I'll go create this one. And we now see that there. If I go to policies, policies is basically where we assign users to a policy. So I can say, or users to a schedule, I should say. So I can say, for example, this is my time zone, and I want to allow specific locations. So let's say certain doors to work, other doors not to, specific users during a specific schedule. So I've just selected the schedule that I've just created, and I can now go ahead and apply this policy. I don't have users set up just yet, so it would be hard for me to point it to anyone here. I only have the admin of this account, which is me in this instance. So that's fine. We'll skip past that for the moment. Let's go all users during that time is allowed to access specific locations or doors. If I go to the locations, you'll see my reception hub is there. It nice and simplifies that for me, so I know exactly what it relates to. Go apply that. Actually, we'll just go all, so it's nice and easy. Okay, so super easy to get that done. As the next step for me, typically, I would go add in a whole bunch of NFC cards. So just important to note here that you do have a tick button to enable third-party NFC cards if you need to. A bunch of third-party NFC cards are supported. Ubiquiti does specify on the actual product page whether or not the specific cards are supported. So it should be listed somewhere on this page. I'm not going to go searching for it, but it will be there somewhere. It will show you which ones are added on. So what I can do with this now is I can go add a NFC card. I can specify where I want this card to be scanned. So let's say I want the reception hub, or let's say the reception exit to function as the primary thing for enrolling these cards. This is just for enrollment of the cards for the moment. I can go continue, and this should now start scanning on that specific reader. I have to hold up the card here, and it should automatically pick up the cards. It's going to fail for me for the moment. I will, at the end of this video, also show the NFC card enrollment process, and I'll do it interactive so we can see what that actually looks like. But you literally just hold up the card. Super easy to do. It says hold it up for 5 seconds to register. Once that's done, you'll see the card just gets added into your pile of cards here, and you can choose to assign this card to a specific user from there. So this is just our stockpile of cards. You can also buy these cards from Ubiquiti if you want to. Okay, so TouchPass is another new one, but before we get into TouchPass, I'm going to go to the admins and users. So very important that we make a distinction here between admins and users. They serve very different roles in access control. So admins would be the IT people, so that would be me as the IT administrator, and users would be the individual people working within the company. Critically important to understand here that if you have an environment where you don't want users to use an email address for creating their user account, you have to create them as admins. So we've come across this a couple of times now already, where let's say you have a HK facility and you don't want the people to necessarily have an email address set up and go through the enrollment process and then trying to have them remember the credentials, etc. We just want users to be able to trigger doors and access the building. You would have to create them as an admin. When you're creating them as an admin, it will prompt you to create a UI account. In this instance, if we want local only, we just say restrict to local only access. We can create a username and password for that user if we wish, although it will just basically pertain to the credentials that they have. We can also choose to use predefined roles, or we can go create our roles as we see fit. Of course, for this, we would want to do that if it's a local only account. So I'll just go Joe, and I'll go create a basic password here. Of course, all the special characters. My password isn't the correct length, but that's fine. I'm just going to skip that for now. And I can now go determine what this person has access to. For the network portion, I wouldn't want them to have any access necessarily. For the protect portion, maybe this person should view 1 or 2 cameras. You can set that up if you wish. For protect, this is where it gets important. So full management would be they have the ability to actually manage this console that we're seeing right now. View only would mean they can see everything that we've done. or we can go none. So even if we do a none account, they can still use their credentials, or you can set them up as a door attendant as well, either or. So this is, Ubiquiti has a clear definition of what this is, available through their guides online. Just check what is more suitable to your environment. Okay, so I'll go, let's say for example, door attendant here. This would typically be somebody that is responsible for or allowed to unlock a specific door. I'll go reception hub in this instance, and I can specify this. The last one is user management. We would want to turn that off so that that person can't add and remove other users. We can also create this as a predefined role if we want to. Okay, this comes with a bunch of caveats. So when this is created, it also creates a user as well. As you can see, it's already created me as a user. For assigning what this user has access to, it has to be done through the user portion. So when you're creating an admin, it's automatically a user. When you're creating a user, it's not automatically an admin. Please remember that. So what I can do now is I can also go create, let's say, normal users in my business. So I'll go do one or two. I can also create these users from scratch, or I can import them via CSV. And importantly, I can also group them. So let's say, for example, you have a group of salespeople, a group of warehouse people, etc., and you need to give them access to the building at different times of day. You can 100% do that. Important, and I'm going to kind of go briefly over this in a second. You can also import your users from environments like Entra ID as well. Although this requires a bit more setup and a bit more finessing in terms of your user groups, but it is 100% supported. So we'll go create a new user here, just a very basic one. We'll just go Alex, I'll just go Alex B for simplicity, at leadersystems.com.au as an example. We can say if this is a new employee when this person starts, we'll say for this example that this is an existing employee. This employee does not belong to any groups right now, and then we can add credentials to this user. If we've already added a bunch of NFC cards, I can click the plus button and it will show me a list of NFC cards. I can tap the button here to say select existing card. It doesn't find any right now, or it can even start the scan on a reader if I wanted to. Important credentials here as well. This doesn't show everything that's supported. We have a few more buttons to play with before everything becomes visible. Important buttons here, stuff like license plate. So if you have an AI camera from Ubiquiti and it has license plate recognition, you can use that as a method to unlock gates or boom gates or something similar. The most popular ones here would typically be stuff like PIN codes and NFC card, obviously, and you can specify these as you wish. You can even generate random codes for you. And then depending on the user that you create, you will also assign a policy. So you can either do this through the user section, or you can do it through the policy section. Up to you how you want to create this. Okay, so I've just linked off there, so I'll just go add this back in as well. Let's do B at leadersystems.com.au. Okay, perfectly done. So we'll go, that's fine. We'll leave it on the default policy, that's all good. And we'll go create this person. Okay, so because I've created them as a user, that email address, so a at leadersystems.com.au, is now going to get an email that says, hey, welcome to this new Unify environment. Please click here to install the application. And that application that they install on their mobile phone, for example, does allow them to unlock the doors. So it's a multi-purpose application in that I can use it to unlock the doors, get alerts if I'm one of the people that should get alerts, and basically control my access environment. So this is obviously a bit more tedious to do it this way because you're creating users one by one. For small environments, that's fine. For businesses, you might want to have a look at identity endpoint. So identity endpoint is kind of segmenting out the identity portion. This isn't compulsory. You don't have to do it this way. This is just for larger deployments, I would say. So with this, you can specify this on a pretty much per site level. So everything that is connected to this cloud key would be controlled through this, not necessarily just for access, but for protect and network and all the other segments as well. And with this, I can create pretty much an application that gets installed onto their mobile phones, their PCs, etc., that allows them one-click access to doors, Wi-Fi, VPNs, etc. It's designed to simplify the user experience and provide them with a simple GUI to click on to unlock doors, etc. I'm not going to do the full identity setup now. We do have a video about this whole process, and this process is changing as well for larger deployments, so that will also be linked in the video description. It might not be there initially, but we will add it on in time. So with this, what I want to do is I can set up my directory integration here, and I can specify where my directory server is. So Microsoft Entra ID is the big one here. To get this done, it sounds incredibly complicated, but it's not. They give you full instructions on how to do it. It takes 3 minutes. And you set up an application in your Entra ID environment. You add the credentials in here. And once that's done, it can sync the users from Entra ID into your user segment. It will also show you if the user was created on this device or came from Entra. And it is synchronized as well. So as you add and remove users, it gets synchronized. So that allows us to create users in bulk, and then from here we can assign privileges. So I've created this user, let's have bulk imported 200 people. I can now go, okay, cool. Alex needs to have this specific key fob. Alex has that license plate, he's using this PIN code, etc. It allows me to assign those privileges to that person. So I'll go through this list, add all of my users in as I need them. And as a last couple of steps here, I can do stuff like touch pass. So I'm going to have to blur out all the passes because you get a limited number of these assigned. These do cost a bit of money as well. So if you run out of touch pass credentials, you can purchase them from Ubiquiti. But the idea behind this is you get a credential that you can add into your Apple or Google wallet, and with that, you can even unlock the door if your phone's battery is dead, for example. There's a bunch of advantages to that. If you don't want to use Apple Touch Pass or Touch Pass, you can still use regular NFC on your phone as well. There is some caveats that go along with that. You have to make it the default card and a bunch of other stuff as well, but it should be possible. So we're not going to go a full detailed setup on that, but it should be pretty straightforward. With this, I can now go assign one of these credentials to a specific user, the new user that I've created, and just go assign. I don't want to do this right now because I have a limited number of these available. Okay, super easy to get done. And the next thing, so we've pretty much handled everything from the setup portion. Our users are there. We have our card inventory, our policies are set up, etc. So we can go ahead and hop over to the devices themselves. So on the devices, you'll see it lists the type of device. My eyes sometimes struggle with the small icons here, but obviously I can just zoom in to get that a little bit clearer. You can also filter to specific types of devices if you're struggling. So we'll start off by looking at the hubs. So as we've said before, the hub is the primary device that is responsible for managing the interfaces with either legacy systems or inputs and outputs or alarms and stuff like that. With this hub, you'll see I can identify which readers are associated to it. In other words, if someone swipes on the reception hub or reception reader, what is the hub that it connects to? Where will it trigger the door? That basically is managed through this. We can take this a step further, and if you have cameras, assign a camera as well. You can go that if someone triggers the door, that it records the motion from that on this camera. So it's a good, easy way to tie it in. We can view this through Protect if we wanted to. If I now go click on Unlock, I'll unlock the door there. We have the ability to see exactly what's happening in our environment. I've set up a card next to my reader, so it's giving me a bunch of false alerts here. That's fine. you can see that Alex has unlocked the door during a specific time interval. And as some of the more important steps here, we do need to go play around with the terminal manager. So this is specifically relating to the hub, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go set up what these contacts are responsible for doing. So the first one I'll typically start off with is on the right hand side, so the lock and the auxiliary input. So with this is typically your powered and dry contact. The intention being that if you want to power the strike or the mag lock directly from this contact, you can do that, and you can set the behavior. So I can say that this is it's obviously set up as a lock, and I can say what is the unlock duration. So if someone presses the unlock button, how long does that door stay unlocked for? This can be adjusted to your heart's desire. There's currently no option for infinite time zones, so it can't be something like I don't know, a boom gate that should stay open indefinitely. This is specifically meant for doors. The gate version of this is very different. The inputs and outputs are different as well, and you do get stuff like side entrance, like relays, etc. for specifically handling those scenarios. And obviously the elevator version would also be completely different as well. So with this, I'm able to say what the unlock duration is as soon as someone unlocks the door. We also have the door operator option. So this is basically if you have one of those automatic door operators to make it open or close. You can say open the door after a few seconds and how long should it be open for before it closes. During all of this, they do give you nice guides on what this does as well. Sirens and chimes, as the name implies, allows us to trigger sirens or chimes based on certain things. So this can be during a unlock. So let's say, for example, someone swiping up on the screen or pressing the button on the screen to notify you that they're at the front door. The chime in this instance would basically like trigger a connected chime to start playing audio. So you can use and buy any chime you want here, like a little alarm or something like that would do the trick nicely. They also do tell you what this is designed for. Sirens, this would be more meant for triggering a door open or door alert. So if you've left the door open for, let's say 30 seconds and you want to trigger an alert, so that will basically do that for you. Moving over to the next bunch of buttons that we have or we can configure. So we can do stuff like motion triggers. So this allows you to connect a motion sensor to this terminal to unlock the door. So let's say, for example, you have a door where it's on the outside of the building has a G2 or G3 Reader Pro, so they can see the camera. It's a nice fully featured device. And if someone just walks up to the door, you want the doors to automatically open via motion sensor. That's exactly what this does. You can say whether the contact is normally open or normally closed, depending on the type of motion sensor that you have. Obviously, very important here is push button exit. So if I want to unlock the door via a push button, that allows me to do it. Critical here is you can also do a ring or trigger chime. So if that is set up, it can basically alert people that somebody needs to be let out, and you can then do that from an alternative place to open that up for them. Again, you can control whether this is normally open or closed. You can also do a door position sensor to just see if the door is open or closed or somewhere in between, and it possibly needs to trigger an alert. And then an important one is emergency. So what is the behavior if there is an emergency? Is it an evacuation or is it lockdown? So evacuation would obviously be all the doors open. Lockdown locks all the doors instantly and they cannot be opened. And you can also choose whether, if this is triggered on one device, that it should trigger it across all devices or not. If you need granular control over which ones get turned on or off during a evacuation scenario, then just leave this off and go configure them manually. And these door positions and these inputs and outputs, these are just the contacts on the actual hub, and it's basically determining what the behavior is. If I wired a keyed emergency override, so that would be literally a key that you turn to trigger an emergency, I'd wire it into those specific contacts, and that allows me to then trigger that event to occur. Ubiquiti does have a keyed emergency override as well, or you can use third party. And again, you can specify whether it's normally open or closed, and you will see you don't have the option to configure the 12 volt 0.33 amp. This is just an auxiliary output for power if you need to power something in your environment, and then connect it through to either the motion or one of the other readers or segments here as well. Okay, so we've configured what the responsibilities of the different terminals on the hubs are. I will go do this for every single one of my hubs to make sure they function correctly. And I will then go take this a step further. I can say, okay, my access method settings for this specific hub, I can customize. I can say that this hub, this reader has the following access methods. That basically just pushes me over to the reader there. I'm going to go back to the hub so we can see the rest of it. We can also set a unlock schedule. So this is basically saying I want the door during that time period to be unlocked. And if I want to go into lockdown or do something like that, I can do that from here as well. Moving on over to the readers. So they follow much the same logic. You'll see it has the video footage here if I want to quickly review that. I can specify whether this is an entry or exit. This is the Reader Pro that I'm on at the moment. So I'll quickly flick over to that so it looks right. So I can say this is an entry or exit. This would typically be on the outside of the building, so entry. And then I can say this is connecting back to the regular hub, reception hub. And we can also set up a call flow to alert receivers. We're going to do that in a moment, so just bear with me while I go through the rest of it. And now we can set up what our access method is for these specific hubs or for these readers. So I can say that this reader allows touch pass, NFC, mobile unlock, either via mobile button or mobile tap. That it's not perfectly clear. You have to see that in the app. Basically, I'll try to show that in the video afterwards as well. And a crucially important one here for me is face unlock. So this uses biometric data, so facial recognition, to unlock the door. This does have anti-spoofing as well. You can determine whether that's on or off. And so basically you can't just hold up a picture and it won't just unlock the door for you. But you can turn that off if you wish. And you can also choose how sensitive this face unlock option is. And then more regular stuff, so PIN code, QR code, so that's a little bit of a strange one. Yes, you can actually use a QR code generated on your app to open the door as well. This is more applicable for guests, and I'll show that in a second. You do also get two-step authentication as well. So if you need an approver, for example, so let's say, for example, that like if John opens the door, Alex should be the approver. Let's go these two. So those two people need to approve your access to the building before it can grant you access into it. Or you can say it requires two methods, so that would be a PIN code and a QR code or something along those lines. The video recordings are managed in this instance through Protect. And then this voice greeting, so I have to commend Ubiquiti here on how good this is. This is using AI, and it will basically go, hi, hello, welcome, whatever you prefer, and will read you your name, first name, last name, or full name. It pronounces my surname correctly, which is a feat I haven't even managed to achieve myself. So it's pretty good at how it pronounces the names. In terms of the rest of the features here, so you can change the brightness, you can change the status light. Some of the readers do also have a welcome flashlight, more like a welcome floodlight. So if there's motion, it basically switches the light on. That's very handy for low light environments because the cameras don't necessarily have IR built in. And you also don't want IR shining into people's eyes, so a nice natural light is a good way to do that. You can also choose whether you want the volume, what level the volume should be at. Okay, so we can go ahead and apply that. And we can do the same thing for our normal reader as well. You'll just see the options here are different. So this would be touch pass, mobile unlock, etc. And then hand wave. So that would be if you just want to wave your hand in front of this reader and it triggers the door to open. You can also say what the greeting is here, and this would be people leaving. So you can say see you, bye, or none. I'll probably just go for none. It does give you a little ding when you either wave your hand or use your credential. So that's it, all done. Okay, next step is we need to go adjust our interface and our call flows. So if your reader has a interface like this, screen, then we need to, or we can configure this as well. So a couple of things we can change. We can change our logo, so that would be the logos displayed on here. We can go change our heading, so we can say this is Leader HQ and welcome, for example. Super easy to do that. And if I want to change the access methods, I can enable or disable access methods directly from here as well. And we can choose what the button behavior is. Do you want people to swipe up to call? Do you want them to hold the button to call? Or do you want to disable it? So if you know that only staff should use this door and it's not a door that's going to be used for people walking into the office or guests, then you can disable that as well. And of course we can go configure our background to change this to something that is more representative of our business. The important one here is this door call. Depending on what you have, so if you have a G2 reader like we have here, then or Reader Pro, then you'll see we have a couple of options. If you have one of the ones that supports intercom, so one of the Ubiquiti intercoms, you do have additional options here as well to set up more call flows for multiple people. In a business sense, this is perfect though. So what we can do here is we can say, I want, when someone, I disabled the button, so let me go back and re-enable that button. So it would be hold to call, let's say for example, and I'll say when someone presses that button, then alert Alex B. Click to save. And I can also go ahead and change the schedule as well. So I can say that only during a predefined schedule should it alert that person. Go apply that change. And I can add additional people in as well. So I can say, for example, save. And I can set different time zones for the different people. So I can say that during normal business hours, AB gets the call, but after business hours, like let's say you're the business owner, you can set up a custom schedule for that as well. And you can even set up holiday exceptions. Okay, super easy. They've made this call flow nice and easy to set up. And then if you actually want to view the call flow, you can just go to the topology and you'll see your reception device, your reader. It's going to ring through to these people during specific times of day. So very simplified. There is another part of this that's relatively new. If we go back to manage our users, you'll see there's a segment here called phone numbers. And with this, I can actually go ahead and get this to phone me as well. So I can type in my mobile number here, and when someone swipes up on the button, I'll get a call. It'll actually tell me that someone's I'll get a physical phone call. It'll tell me that someone's at the front door. Press 1 to unlock or hash to speak to that person. I don't know how they've achieved this. This call does not rely on you having talk or SIP or something like that set up. This is just done automatically by Ubiquiti. And there's no charge for that call as well, not that I know of. So I don't know how exactly they've achieved this, but it works. So you can add these numbers in, you can add multiple numbers in as well. And you can also say that like if you want multiple people to ring at the same time, that's the way to do it. So super easy way to do it, and nice that you're able to actually trigger the doors when you're out and about. And that pretty much concludes the entire access setup. And there's a lot more control that can go into this. In the settings portion, you'll see there's, especially in the user management, a lot of control over it. One last feature I do want to call out is we've enabled that facial recognition. If I go back into the user section, you'll see that is now available here. You can upload a face photo as well. So I can take someone's picture off LinkedIn, potentially, and I can add them into this. And if they go in front of that reader, it does allow them to unlock the door. We've tested this in our offices. It works exceptionally well, even from a flat photo. Obviously, there's some concerns around privacy with that, so treat with caution and do obey the local laws, obviously. But a very cool feature to have. When you're using identity endpoint, you can also have the users self-enroll their photos as well. So if I do specify a face photo, it's going to just prompt me to add a photo in. If I do set this up, and I do set one of the access methods as door access, and face photo is enabled on that user account, it will prompt that user to enroll their face and take a bunch of photos, and it does that full, like you would get on an Apple phone where it scans your face, it does that scan as well. So depending on whether you're Android or Apple, I think it treats it differently in both instances. The last final point I want to touch on here is visitors. So most businesses would obviously get visitors, and this is a super simple way to do it. And the intention here is you can set up guest access. So we'll go add a very quick guest here. So we'll just go Joe Soap. And the reason he's going to come and visit us is on, let's say, for example, business. He wants to chat to us. Does he have an email address? I can add that in if I want to. I can specify the person that Joe has to visit. And I can also go a step further and go, this is Joe's phone number, company, remarks. So here to speak to Alex about Ubiquiti. Alex, UI. Perfect. So now we'll know why they visited. I can say this is a one-time visit or recurring visit, whether they allow during certain times, certain dates, which doors they are allowed to access. So I can say, okay, cool. When they come and visit, they can only get access to the front door, but they're not allowed to use that this access or this credential to unlock anything else in the building. And now we wonder what the credential is. So this can either be an NFC card, if I have a stockpile of them already. It can be a PIN code. It can be a license plate. So as they drive up, it can unlock the gate for them, for example. Or a very cool one here is QR code. So I'll go create this user quickly. And you'll see the status is it's upcoming. This is still something that the person hasn't visited us yet. And you'll see that QR code icon. So what I can do is I can send an invitation email. I don't have an email address added right now, but I can send this out. And once that person gets that email, he gets that QR code, and they only need to hold that QR code up to the reader. The reader scans the QR code and it unlocks the door for them. So some unique use cases for this would be stuff like Airbnbs, for example, where you just want simple access and that credential to only work for a specific period of time. And you can also see when people actually arrived, when they left, etc. And of course I can go back and customize this if I wanted to. So this QR code option to me is incredibly valuable. I can also say Mark has arrived. So Mark has arrived, so Alex is here now. It's basically saying that Alex has checked in. It hasn't included as part of the stats just yet, but it probably will. And when that person leaves, we can also mark it as complete. Once that is marked as complete, that QR code will no longer work. So it's a nice, easy way to manage this remotely as well. And of course, you can create a multitude of users or visitors. That's pretty much it for the entire setup. So as I always encourage, please do go play around with this. Your environment will dictate exactly what your demands are here, and you can customize this to your heart's desire. As a final point, just before I get into the practical setup videos, I do just want to mention that we will be adding a ton more content around this as well, so do keep checking back on these videos. So next up, what I'm going to do is I will show you the physical connectivity, how I'm wiring up the hub. and I'll kind of talk you through that with the different inputs and outputs, the locks, etc. Again, not legal advice. It does not comply to any standard. This is just to show you how easy it is to actually wire stuff into the hub, which is something that puts a lot of people off. So let's break to that now. Okay, so what we're going to do here is, firstly, we're going to connect our hub to Ethernet and get power from that. I'm also connecting up the G2 reader or the G3 reader. This is the regular version that doesn't have the built-in camera. And you'll see I've also got a lock and a push button attached to this. The concept being that the lock would obviously be in a door frame, and you would do the authentication via key fob to allow the door to unlock. You'll see me in a second push the lock in, and you'll see that triggering. The push button is obviously just a push button exit, and you can push the button to open the door. We are going to gradually add more components onto this. The wiring here is basically the lock is getting powered from the hub itself, so it's getting 12 volt 1 amp to power that lock, and the push button is just a dry contact, essentially just picking up whether it's open or closed. This is a super simple door setup and something that's fairly common to see. So as the final topology that I'm going to show here, I've added on a keyed emergency override as well as a strobe light. The keyed emergency override is a Ubiquiti product. It allows you to trigger the emergency evacuate or emergency lockdown mode by turning the key. The strobe is just a third-party strobe that I've got off an electrical supplier, and the rest of the equipment stays the same. Please note, when you're wiring up this equipment, this is just how I've done it. Your equipment would have different states for normally open, normally closed. They might require different wiring as well. If you're unsure, please do check out techspecs.ui.com. I do recommend wiring this up on a bench before you deploy it for a customer or in a wall, because it obviously is a little bit easier to do it this way for fault finding. Also, I'm not going to show all the different readers and lock types because we're limited with what we can do on a bench. The motion sensors, door operators, etc., those options exist, although again, I'm not going to show them on here. Their wiring would also be completely dependent on the equipment that you're using. So predominantly, this is super easy to test. If you're powering stuff from this hub, it's relatively safe as well. It's low voltage at 12 volt 1 amp. It's at its peak for the connected devices. If you're powering up stuff like a third-party mag lock that has external power, just be careful when you're wiring this up into the hub, because the third-party equipment could obviously, if it's got a lot of power, damage the equipment here. I believe it does have some surge protection built into the hub, but I wouldn't want to test that, and I don't recommend you do either. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just show you guys how I've got it set up. So I've got the emergency override wired up on the left bottom side, and then I've got the same push button reader and just a normal lock there. So with this, I'm going to, again, just use a key fob and unlock the door. You'll see I can push down the locking mechanism. After a few seconds, that will lock and I can't push it down anymore. Same thing for the push button. It basically does the exact same thing, allows me to unlock it for a brief period of time. I can also adjust that time and basically say lock after, for example, 5 seconds. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trigger the keyed emergency override, so literally turning the key, and you'll see the reader turns green and we have the strobe light flashing. This would be for security guards who need to trigger an emergency evacuation or something along those lines. So they've made this super simple and intuitive. There's a full detailed guide for all the different types of equipment on techspecs.ui.com. If you do need additional help in terms of setup and how to wire things, please do also feel free to reach out to Leader. We're happy to help you with that. With that, I'm going to end off the video and just want to thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Again, from Leader side, we're more than happy to help with any questions you might have. Yeah, we do look forward to seeing you in our other videos as well. Thanks so much. Have a great day.